Welcome back to Franchise Focus. I'm your host, Lisa Linkowski. I'm a certified franchise consultant representing hundreds of franchise concepts. Franchise Focus is all about interviewing people in the franchise space, especially business owners, because I love to hear their story and how they came into franchising. And in studio today, I have with me Rob Sullivan, who is the strategic partner with Schooley Mitchell. And welcome, Rob.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Very glad to have you today, Rob. And this is our second time seeing each other, and we're going to get into that.
Yep, second time today.
So Schooley Mitchell, most people probably do not know what that is, and we're going to get into that.
Sure.
But franchising, I'm sure, like me, you worked in corporate America.
I did.
And then somehow the tether of franchising, the tentacles brought you in. So talk about what your background was. What led you to this?
So my background, corporate background, is with General Electric, Fidelity, and Comcast. And I started consulting on my own about 12 years ago and struck up a relationship with Dennis Schooley, the owner of Schooley Mitchell, or I guess who runs Schooley Mitchell. And he was always interested in my background. We always had great conversations. My last contract was done in September of 2020. I was always going to do the Schooley Mitchell consulting, but with the pandemic, that kind of sped everything up. People don't want strangers coming into their facilities, helping them out with their operations. They were really just kind of turtling, where they wanted to just take care of their companies, status quo, not necessarily work on improvements. So I moved forward with Schooley Mitchell.
All right, well, you just made that sound super easy and super quick and super fast. How did you even start a conversation with Dennis in the first place? Like, what led to that?
So he actually recruited me. Basically, what I would do is, I have an operations background, engineering background. I'm Six Sigma trained with GE. I'm Lean trained with GE. So very process, procedures, focused, that kind of thing. And when I would go into companies, I would look at cost reduction consulting as well. With, from a telecom standpoint, I worked for Comcast. Logistics has kind of been my thing for close to 25 years. So we struck up a conversation. He reached out to me, and we just kind of continued the conversation.
So you weren't doing consulting on behalf of Schooley Mitchell during that time?
No.
So he just reached out to you and was quietly trying to put in your ear that he wanted you to come on board?
Yes, we had great conversations. He called it the opportune time, right when I finished a contract or something like that. He's like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I hadn't figured that out yet. And I never had a back office. I never had a marketing department. I never had any kind of support from that standpoint. So Schooley Mitchell kind of brought all that to the table to, for a complete consulting gig kind of
So
thing.
for 4 years, he was reaching out gently, quietly, saying, come on board, and then you finally decided this is the time to do it.
Yeah, it was probably just, twice a year, but
Okay.
It was the opportune time for him to call. You know what I mean? It was right when I wasn't
right place,
sure.
right time, right?
Exactly.
Okay, and at that point you were like, okay, I feel that this is something I should be doing. And that was 2020, right?
Correct.
When you came on board.
Yes.
This, what month was that?
September.
September 2020. Okay, so you said that the pandemic was the perfect time. Okay.
Yes.
So we've talked about Schooley Mitchell. We've mentioned it now multiple times. Please explain what Schooley Mitchell is for the audience so that they know.
Absolutely. What we do is, it's pretty basic. We go into companies, we look at their telecom spend, which is their wireless, their wireline, their internet. We look at FedEx, UPS spend, we look at credit card processing, waste management. For some larger companies, we look at electric, gas. For transportation companies, we look at electronic logging devices and fuel. And basically what we do is we work off 3 months of invoicing. We have about a 30-minute fact-finding conversation. So it really takes the potential client about an hour to an hour and a half worth of time. And then my team goes to work. We look for billing issues. Then we look for services that you're paying for that you're not utilizing. And then we leverage the fact that we have 25,000 clients and we're able to negotiate rates better than the companies can do on their own. So it's a complete free analysis that we do for the client. There's no obligation, no risk. We present the value analysis to the client. At that point, the client has 100% say to go, not go. If they do proceed to go with us, we share in the savings. I kind of say we're somewhat self-funded because we're getting them savings that they couldn't get on their own. But what we do is we take over the vendor management. We're kind of the vendor watchdog. We'll continue to look at the invoices for billing issues, any kind of scope creep. We keep track of all of the contracts, which in some cases are self-renewing, and people kind of, forget that, and then all of a sudden they find out that they're wrapped up in another 5-year contract. We take care of all of that. If there are issues, we work directly with the vendor. So it turns out that it's actually a huge time saver as well as cost savings.
So expense reduction analysis on steroids?
No, I kind of say that we're competitors.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I seem to think that we are a little bit more partnering with the companies kind of thing.
ERA is I was using it in the verb, but it is.
I'm sorry.
No, but you're right.
Sorry.
It's the competitor.
It is.
Competitive franchise. Okay.
And they work with some, they have more categories than we do.
Okay.
But they work at a bigger, I want to say a bigger level in most cases.
All right. Yeah. Well, that would be my next question is what size company are you looking? I assume you're industry agnostic.
Yes.
And then what size company is your sweet spot? Like if you could work in it all day long, every day, what would you target?
It's manufacturing because I come from somewhat of a manufacturing background. When I talk to a CFO, they understand that I've run companies with 300 to 400 employees. They understand the time saving that's involved. Manufacturing can take almost every category we have. But my smallest client's actually a 3-person law firm that I saved $20,000 for, and my largest client is a $600 million manufacturing company. So
wow.
It's been the gamut.
That's the spread right there.
Yeah, you mean law firms, I average about a 42% savings on their FedEx. We do really well with medical waste, so any kind of medical institution. Nonprofits, we're very successful with helping them out. But yeah, manufacturing, distribution, industrial, they're kind of the bigger ones.
But you can't be the expert in all these areas. You can't be the expert in telecom and medical waste and in packaging. So when you talk about your team, are you talking about the other Schooley Mitchell owners? Or how does that work? Is it truly your team?
No, it's the corporate office.
Okay.
So the corporate office has, I believe it's 110 analysts at this point. There are gurus, I kind of say, in each one of the categories. I mean, coming from Comcast and working for UPS, I was great with, telecom and, logistics. I had no clue whatsoever about merchant services. Mm-hmm. And the guru that I work with, she's basically educating me as we go through each client. And we've had small clients where we've saved them over $20,000. It's been great.
Wow. Okay. So that again goes to the fact that when you're a solopreneur, you're all by yourself trying to figure everything out. You don't have any of that back end support, whereas the franchise does provide so much more for you from the system where you get to talk to the other franchise owners, which I assume that you do that on a regular basis? I
do. I have a couple throughout the country that, we share success stories. We do that within the company too. So if somebody does a nonprofit or a daycare center, it gives the other franchisees the idea, hey, maybe I should go into this daycare center, that kind of thing.
Right.
But there are a couple that I kind of commiserate with, because there are times where we can't save companies money, and we present that to them, and then they just have a value report that says that they're doing great.
How often does that happen? I can't imagine.
It doesn't happen that
often.
Right? Usually we're able to save them something.
Yeah, because typically a company, goes with the guy that brings in the box of donuts, and they just stay with him because he brings the box of donuts, right?
Yes.
And they don't question anything. It's just like, oh, here's our donuts. Thank you so much. So once you really start diving into that much deeper, and you start looking on behalf of the company, then it's like, okay, you need to set that vendor aside. And now look at the savings that you just brought them. So I can imagine that there are not many companies that are running that lean and mean.
Yeah, I actually have a client, he's technically challenged, so he brought his IT vendor in. And the IT vendor has probably about 250 techs, he's not small. And he saw the rates that we got, my clients, the rates that we got for telecom. And he's like, I have 250 employees. I can't come anywhere near these rates. So we're able to negotiate rates better than some IT companies, that sort of thing.
Okay. So you and I were together this morning at a networking event.
Yes.
And I tell all of my candidates that being your brand ambassador is critical to the success of your business. That you have to be out in your community. You've got to be out networking. As much of a time, it takes up a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of space that you go, oh, I should be doing this or I could be doing that. However, you were there mingling with other people so that you can meet them. Is that how you got your start? How did you build up your clientele in the beginning? Because that's the toughest time.
Right, and I came from, strictly a corporate world kind of thing. So my job was networking in the beginning of this. So I joined chambers, I joined networking groups, both virtual and in person. So in the last year and a half, I've done about 1,200 one-to-ones. Some of the people that I know, the Uber networkers of the world that I'm kind of connected with. I had one person say, networking is one letter away from not working. So my job has been, for my first 6 months, I wanted to be 75% networking, 25% working, and then by the beginning of the summer, I want to be 50-50 kind of thing. Okay. So I do have to walk away from some of this stuff, and as you learn, you kind of pick and choose where you think the value is. But then hopefully, I'll bring somebody else on to do the administrative work, and I can continue to network at the ideal places.
All right.
Like this morning.
An attorney will always say, don't ask a question that you don't know what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask this,
okay.
And I'm hoping for the right answer. Was networking a key to your success for your building up your franchise?
Oh, absolutely. I've gotten one phone call that was completely blind that said, I want you to look at this. Everything else has been a referral, an introduction, fellow networkers that I've helped out their companies. Everything has really been through networking.
Yeah,
I'm hoping
it piles on piles and piles, and and I say that, I go, everything that you're doing, everywhere that you go, everyone that you speak to, even if you don't see the direct value immediately, it all has basis for building your foundation.
Absolutely.
All of it, from beginning to end. Everyone sees you, they're like, Rob, he's with that Schooley Mitchell company. He does something dealing with saving companies money. Okay, great. All right, excellent, right? And that's what you want it to be.
Right.
Because that's important. And everyone that you meet knows people that work in companies.
You're absolutely right.
Right? Everybody.
Yep.
We all know people that work in companies, and we all know companies want to save some money because that's the name of the game. You can have incredible top line revenue, but if you don't have great gross profit and you don't have wonderful gross margin, that's not going to be a good thing for your company.
Absolutely, especially nowadays. You know what I mean? Nobody knows what's going to come around the corner, sort of thing. So,
well, you know what's coming around the corner? We'll be right back because we're going to take a quick commercial break and we're going to pick this up on the other side.
Guess what it is? It's Mount Laurel, New Jersey. It's RBN Television, and you know that it's time for morning coffee.
Would you like people screwing with you for whatever fucking reason, right? But your husband can't give you understand?
Come join us on April 25th at the Wall of Love and Hope as we fight to keep families together. Only you can make this change happen.
Welcome back to Franchise Focus. I'm your host, Lisa Linkowski. And in studio, we have Rob Sullivan, who is the strategic partner with Schooley Mitchell. And Rob, right on the other side, we were talking about networking, and thank goodness you answered my question exactly what I was hoping for.
I tried.
But one of the things that I want to talk about is that owning a business, and you know because you owned your own consulting business for 12 years, owning a business is not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. And franchising just makes it a little bit easier because you're given all those systems in place, right? So it does make it a little bit easier. It does not mean it's easy.
Correct.
Does not mean that. It's still really hard work, and it still takes a lot of everything for you to get it to where it needs to be. So you've been in this for, 2020, a year and a half-ish, right?
Correct.
Give or take.
Almost exactly.
What were some of the big, if people are saying or thinking about, I want to get into something like this. This is home-based. I work for myself. I'm running out of my home office. I don't have to have brick and mortar. I'm not interested in the, in technician type work. It's running around out there. What were some obstacles that you have faced, and how did you sit there and overcome them? If you could give us a couple of those for us.
So the biggest obstacle I'm still working on, it's really convincing a company that I'm going to take about an hour to an hour and a half worth of your time. And it's really true. My team does all the work. I've also had other companies where we've done the value report, we've presented them with savings, and they still haven't moved forward. I actually have a nonprofit that we saved them $32,000 on their telecom for a year, consolidated all 19 of their locations, and they haven't signed off on it yet. So it's a lot of those things where, if I could get into somebody's head and understand why, that's kind of the biggest frustration.
Do you think it's just the nature of we all have a 10-second attention span, and so you present this, oh wow, and then squirrel, something else comes along, takes their attention, and now you've been forgotten because they're putting out some other fire somewhere else?
And that could definitely be it. You know what I mean? I'd really love to know. I don't push, because I'm an operations guy, it's not, I'm going to send an email on Monday, I'm going to call you on Wednesday, and then I'm going to follow up on LinkedIn on Friday. I'm not that person. Right. So what I'll do, and we do have a drip campaign program. Right now, I kind of like the personal messages. I probably have 40 to 50 clients that either haven't signed or haven't signed off on the value add report, and they'll get an email, they might get a phone call, once a month, that kind of thing, just to see what's up. Nothing's ever really died. Do you know what I mean? No one's ever said, hey, you're saving me $20,000. I know
interested.
I'm not interested. You can save me money. It's only going to take me an hour worth of my time. I don't see the value in that. You know what I mean? Like, it all makes sense. It's really, maybe I'm not simplifying it enough, or maybe I'm making it a little bit too difficult, but I don't think so.
I'll give you, I know, because I owned my own franchise. I worked with business owners. We're in the Northeast, and we are a cynical lot. It's just,
absolutely.
It's just the.
That's why I don't cold call.
So we're a cynical lot, and so you come in saying, I can save you this amount of money, but what's the catch? Right. So that's what they're thinking. What's the catch? And you're like, truly, there's no catch. I'm just going to save you money. But they're like, no, there has to be something more. There has to be something more. What's the catch? So I think that's probably one of the bigger factors for you is, no, there's no catch. Like, this is it.
Right.
You want to go fishing, there's your catch, but this is not it.
Yep.
I truly have found this for you, and it didn't require anything on your end. And now I just want to implement it for you.
Right.
That's it, right? In a nutshell?
Exactly. That's why I kind of say I'd love to be able to peek into some clients' heads and see where, what is the obstacle. But then on the other hand, I've had clients, and some of my bigger ones, where they're like, okay, I want to start with this. And I'm like, well, let's do 2 of them to make it worthwhile. And, I have the hour conversation, they get me the information I need, and they're like, is that it? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to come back to you in, 4 to 5 weeks with our results. Oh, okay. That's all? And I'm like, yeah, but when we do it, we're gonna try to add 2 more categories. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, some of people just totally get it. They're just, you're gonna save me money, you're gonna take a portion of it, but, the other portion is gonna drop right to my bottom line.
Sure. So in franchising, one of the things that I love is validation. And validation, and since you already had the ear of the head of Schooley Mitchell, I'm not sure how much validation that you had to do, but are you already starting to get calls of prospective owners that are looking to buy a Schooley Mitchell franchise, and they're speaking to you about it and asking you how it's been for you?
Yes and no. I had a couple. I've had a couple that have been interested, and Dennis pushes them to me, and then I also have a couple that are looking to buy an existing.
Okay.
So
okay.
that
The
I've had as well, and I'm a little too green for that one, but
yeah, resales are a tricky lot. That
yeah,
is
well, I'm
for
not
sure.
sure,
Yeah.
what I'm doing next year, let alone,
Right.
you know.
Right. Okay. So, so the validation process, where you get to speak to people that are interested in buying a Schooley Mitchell, what do you find are people asking? Like, what do you find a common thread that people most want to know? I'm going to assume it's the finances.
It is. And you nailed it on the head when you said the Northeast. You know what I mean? We're not nice people. You know what I mean? We're a little more cynical than the rest. Trust me, I'm one of them, and I get along with all of them. But from a business standpoint, you can't walk into a facility, especially after COVID.
Right.
There's not open arms. So if they're in the Northeast, I kind of tell them, I'm like, it's all relationship.
Yeah.
And if they think that they're going to cold call and do all that, from my experience, I really think it's more referral driven and getting your name out there, especially you're working for a company where nobody really knows what the name is, has probably never even heard of it before,
right.
but definitely doesn't know the details of what you can bring to the table.
This is a large franchise, and it's been around for a long time. Do you know how many franchise owners there are approximately?
I believe there's about 175. It's been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's the largest in North America. I'm not sure how ERA is not, because ERA is global.
Right.
But I'm not sure how they say that.
Okay. All right. But you do have an expansive network out there that's been doing this, but it's a quiet, under the radar kind of company that just comes in, does what it's supposed to do, and leaves, right? That's the
pretty
idea.
much. Well, but we don't leave. We partner up with the companies.
Oh, right. Right, of course, because you want to continue working with them and finding additional savings.
Right. We work off of a 3-year agreement, but what we kind of say is after 3 years, your business has changed. Technology's definitely changed. We like to add another category at least every year or every other year. We just added utilities this past year, I guess 2021. So our average client actually stays with us 8 years. Wow. And they don't want to look at their invoices anymore either. So we've been able to figure out ways to do it. The savings is not as great as the first time around,
sure.
But because of technology changing, different buying programs, we're usually able to save them more money and make it worthwhile for both of us to continue the relationship.
You mentioned that, and you glossed over it very fast, but I need
sorry.
to emphasize the fact that you've got your Six Sigma from GE.
I do.
How much did that help you? I know Six Sigma is very process oriented, but how much did that help you in doing this and making this a success for you? And because you can talk in that speak with business owners, is that why?
Yes, so my undergrad is engineering, I'm Six Sigma trained, I'm lean trained, all that GE fun stuff.
Right.
So when I do go in and talk to a CEO or a CFO of an industrial company, they get it. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, this person's not a salesperson, he's got an operations background. I had one, this is one of my favorite stories, so I had one company right in the beginning, and this guy was a private equity's dream. He was a West Point grad with a Harvard MBA, and he was running this manufacturing company. And I did my little spiel. He's like, oh, you come from the, and we kind of bonded a little bit. It was a 15-minute conversation. I had a contract signed at 7 a.m. the next morning. And he's just like, I absolutely totally get the business model.
Right, and some they're just like that,
It
right?
was, yeah, it was very, very rewarding to get that.
So I'm going to ask another question. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but working solopreneur, doing consulting for all those years.
Yep.
You come into the franchising space. Any regrets?
No, I'm not completely comfortable yet.
Right. Well, you're still young. You're still young in this.
Yes, yes. I mean, but you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean? There are bad days where people, kind of disappear.
Yeah.
But then there's good days. I signed a client last week that is technically it would be 35 clients because he has 35 locations all over the country, and they're all relatively big.
Oh, so territory-wise, you can work anywhere as long as the home base is in your space. Is that correct?
We can
or
work
no?
anywhere off of a referral.
Oh, okay.
So we can't advertise outside of our realm, but at Northeast we really don't advertise anyway. So
Right.
It's again referrals, word of mouth, things like that. So I have a few clients that are multi-locations, and the cool thing is I can consolidate them. I think I discussed this, but one was a daycare center, and they had 19 locations, and they were getting 19 phone bills. I saved them $32,000,
Right.
but they get one phone bill now.
Right.
So it's a huge benefit from just someone's time.
Okay. So what would be some words of wisdom for someone that's looking to come into something like this or into franchising overall? What would you offer?
It depends on the individual. So my biggest struggle was patience. So I was an operations person. If I sent an email and nobody responded in an hour or two, they better be bleeding. You mean now it's just, somebody might call you back in 2.5 weeks or so. So it's really coming from my background. It was really trying to adjust to having patience, which I'm not really good with. But for anybody else, it's not the first conversation that you have with somebody. That's the value. It's usually the third or the fourth, building that relationship for that person wanting to refer you. You know what I mean? I did a lot of one-to-ones, and then I went back to the people that I really kind of bonded with or had a good conversation with, and then I had the second conversations with them, and then you evaluate them, and then you go have the third conversations. It's narrowing your referral partner group down.
Right.
I think it's not like, let's see how many one-to-ones I can have. You know what I mean? If they were business owners, yeah, go see how many you can have. You know what I mean? That's great. But from networking standpoint, try to narrow it down to the ones that you do well with, and you can potentially refer them. You know what I mean? You want it to be a two-way street. You want to be able to help each other out from that standpoint. So.
Sure. Okay. So for all of those prospective clients that Rob has been trying to talk to, let's sign the deal, right? Let's sign the deal with Rob and make this happen. And we're going to put Rob's information up on the screen so that you can reach out and contact him. And thank you so much, Rob, for coming in. And what area do you represent then? What's your area that you cover?
Greater Philadelphia.
Greater Philadelphia. So
But
you
I can
hear it.
help anybody anywhere.
Right. All right. So thank you so much, Rob, for coming in. This
Thank you
is
for having me.
Franchise Focus, and I'm Lisa Linkowski. I am a certified franchise consultant. You can learn more about me at milestonefranchising.com. And Franchise Focus airs every Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.